Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights was one of the most celebrated works in the tradition of English novels. It's the only novel written by one among the prominent Bronte sisters, that is Emily Bronte, who has written writings under the pseudonym Elizabeth. The others being Anne Bronte and Charlotte Bronte. So, Wuthering Heights tells the story of two families, the Earnshaws and the Lindens. It has got Gothic influence of Gothic fiction as well as Romanticism. So, let's move on to the important events in the plot of Wuthering Heights. We can see that Wuthering Heights is a frame narrative. Wuthering Heights is one of the classic fiction, belongs to Emily Bronte, author. Emily Bronte wrote under the pseudonym Elizabeth. It was the only novel written by Emily Bronte, and Heights deals with two families, the Earnshaws and the Lintons. Before moving to the novel, let's make a shallow acquaintance with the family tree depicted in this novel. We know, see the family tree. In Wuthering Heights, two families of landed gentry living on West Yorkshire moors are depicted. Two families belong to Mr. Earnshaws as well as Mr. Linton's. You can see first Earnshaw's family, then Linton's family. Earnshaw's family consists of Mr. Earnshaw and his wife Mrs. Earnshaw. They have a son named Hindley Earnshaw and a daughter Catherine Earnshaw. Look at Hindley Earnshaw's family tree. Hindley Earnshaw, his wife was Frances, and together they have a son, Hareton Earnshaw. Now, what about Catherine Earnshaw? Catherine Earnshaw married Edgar Linton, and both of them have a daughter named Cathy Linton. Then, what about Linton's family? You can see Mrs. Linton and Mr. Linton. Here, Mrs. and Mr. Linton's son, Edgar Linton, got married to a daughter of Mr. Earnshaw, that is Catherine Earnshaw. Both Edgar Linton and Catherine Earnshaw had Cathy Linton as their daughter. Then, Edgar Linton's sister was Isabella Linton, who has got married to the novel's chief protagonist, that is Heathcliff. And both Heathcliff and Isabella Linton has got a son named Linton Heathcliff. So this is a family tree. First, make a thorough understanding about the family tree. Then it will help you much in understanding, in realizing the plot of this work. So we have gone through family tree of Wuthering Heights, where you have seen two families living at West Yorkshire moors, that is the Earnshaws family as well as the Lintons family. We know that romanticism as well as elements of Gothic fiction are there in Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, which was published in the year 1847. Wuthering Heights was published in the year 1847 under the pseudonym Ellis Bell. So Emily Bronte belongs to one among the Bronte sisters. Bronte sisters had produced their works under pseudonyms like Ellis Bell, then Currer Bell, then Action Bell, and so on. So Emily Bronte was Ellis Bell, then Anne Bronte was Action Bell, then Charlotte Bronte was Currer Bell, right? So we can see that Wuthering Heights was published in the year 1847 along with Anne Bronte's Agnes Grey, which was the famous work of Charlotte Bronte. We know it's Jane Eyre, right? So Charlotte Bronte has written Jane Eyre, then Anne Bronte's Agnes Grey, then Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. These works stand as classic works of the Bronte sisters. So this is set on West Yorkshire moors, and let's move on to the plot. You can see two main houses, Wuthering Heights and also Thrushcross Grange. We have already came across two families, that is family of Mr. Earnshaw and family of Mr. Linton, right? Now, so we can see that it is a frame narrative. This work, Wuthering Heights, is a frame narrative. First, we can see Mr. Lockwood. Who was Mr. Lockwood? He was a new tenant. He was a tenant at Thrushcross Grange of Yorkshire. And who was the landlord of Thrushcross Grange? Heathcliff was the landlord. And he has a farmhouse named Wuthering Heights. Lockwood was a new tenant at Heathcliff's um, uh, new tenant at Thrushcross Grange. As new tenant at Thrushcross Grange, Mr. Lockwood arrives, where he meets the landlord Heathcliff, who was residing at his farmhouse, Wuthering Heights. Lockwood meets around three persons there. First one was Kathy Linden. Kathy Linden was presented as a very reserved woman. She is very young. Then Joseph is there, who was a who was a servant. Joseph was also a servant. Then you can see Hareton. Hareton is presented as a very uneducated young man, and who don't know how to speak properly, who don't know how to speak like a landlord and all. So all these people, whether it is Kathy Linden, Hareton, or Joseph, seems to be inhospitable. So Lockwood happens to read the diary of the former inhabitant there, and he came to know more about this family. And so who was the earlier inhabitant of this family, whose diary Mr. Lockwood found out? She was none other than Catherine Earnshaw, the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Earnshaw. So, from Catherine Earnshaw's diary, Mr. Lockwood deciphers the history of the Earnshaw's family. He also, Lockwood had a nightmare during that night, and Catherine asked Lockwood to allow her to enter into his room through the window. Apparition of Catherine makes Lockwood scary. Now, Lockwood returns to Thrushcross Grange, and he was bedridden. Now, Lockwood meets Nellie Dean, who is another housekeeper, who was Lockwood's housekeeper, and from that point, Nellie Dean tells him the story of this strange family. What was the tale of Nellie Dean? 30 years before, what happened to the Earnshaw's family? We can see. So, from the family tree, we have seen that we have seen the family tree of the Earnshaw family, right? That is, Mr. and Mrs. Earnshaw has got a son and a daughter, who was son of Mr. and Mrs. Earnshaw, Hindley Earnshaw. Then daughter Catherine Earnshaw. They had 30 years back. They had a maid named Nellie. So this was the domestic situation of the Earnshaw family. Now, from Liverpool, Mr. Earnshaw went to Liverpool, and from there, from the Liverpool, Mr. Earnshaw brings an orphan boy who was Heathcliff. What was the domestic situation of the Earnshaw's family? You can see Mr. Earnshaw is there, Mrs. Earnshaw is there, Hindley Earnshaw is there, and Catherine Earnshaw is there, and these family had a servant, that is Nellie. When Mr. Earnshaw, head of the family, went to Liverpool, from Liverpool, Mr. Earnshaw brings an orphan boy who looks like a gypsy boy, and his name was Heathcliff. Heathcliff was the favorite of Mr. Earnshaw. But what happened after the death of Heathcliff's guardian, that is Mr. Earnshaw? What happened? Till then, Heathcliff was the adopted son of Mr. Earnshaw. But after the death of Mr. Earnshaw, everyone in the household of Mr. Earnshaw, turned against Heathcliff. Right. That is, Earnshaw's children, especially Hindley, was more resentful against Heathcliff. Even Hindley used to torture Heathcliff physically. But on the other hand, only one person in the household showed compassion towards Heathcliff. That was Catherine Earnshaw. Catherine was very much drawn towards Heathcliff. So after the death of Earnshaw, you can see that Hindley departs from university. Hindley got married to Frances. Now, Hindley got married to Frances. After that, Hindley treats Heathcliff as servant, and both of them abuses him verbally as well as emotionally. So, but Catherine was the only person uh, who loved Heathcliff genuinely, romantically, even passionately, we can see. So, this was the household condition of Mr. Earnshaw's. Then you can see at nearby Thrush Cross Grange, the Lintons lived. They were much sophisticated in manners and culture while compared to the Earnshaws. So Edgar Lincoln, Mr. and Mr. and Mrs. Linton has got Edgar Linton as son and Isabella Linton as daughter. Once Heathcliff and Catherine happened to go to Thrush Cross Grange, where they made acquaintance with the Linton's family, especially with Edgar Linton as well as Isabella Linton. When Catherine is attacked by their dog, the Lintons, that is Edgar Linton as well as Isabella Linton, take her in, and they rescued her, and but at the same they took Catherine into their household. At the same time, they have driven Heathcliff back to his home. So, moreover, both Hindley and Edgar Linton, Hindley Earnshaw and Edgar Linton make fun of Heathcliff. So, Heathcliff was made to live at that at the Earnshaw's mansion in a very miserable condition. He was hurt physically as well as emotionally. So, from that moment, and Heathcliff swore that he will take revenge. And you can see Frances died after giving birth to Hareton. Now, 2 years later, we can see Catherine gets engaged to Edgar. Catherine confesses to Nellie that she loves Heathcliff and she wants to help Heathcliff. This much thing she says. She loves Heathcliff and she wants to help him. But after that, when she finished saying this thing, after that Heathcliff came and happened to eavesdrop Nellie and Catherine. Now at that time, so Heathcliff believed that Catherine was in love with Heathcliff, and both had shared passionate as well as romantic moments together. But when Heathcliff get into room, Heathcliff heard when Heathcliff eavesdrops what Catherine and Nellie was discussing. He happened to hear only this part of their conversation, that Catherine was confessing to Nellie that she couldn't marry Heathcliff due to Heathcliff's poor social status. And also Nellie was equally warning her against her relationship with Heathcliff. So what Heathcliff overhears was the part of their conversation. He has not heard. At first, Catherine said that I am badly in love with Heathcliff, but that part of the conversation has not reached into the ears of Heathcliff. By the time Heathcliff get into the scene, Heathcliff happened to hear that Catherine says, "I cannot marry Heathcliff," and so. So immediately he was broken, and Heathcliff flees from the household. And after that, you can see that Edgar and Catherine got married. Then they were expecting children. Now, exactly at that point, Heathcliff returns as a wealthy gentleman. We don't know how it happens, but Heathcliff returns as a wealthy gentleman. Now Heathcliff wants to take revenge because the Earnshaws as well as the Lintons emotionally as well as verbally, physically tortured him, right? So she wanted to take revenge. So under Heathcliff, at the arrival of Heathcliff, he was just like a tiger in the clad of a sheep, something like that. Now, so Heathcliff wanted to take revenge silently, but Heathcliff wanted to take revenge to everyone at the Earnshaws family as well as at the Thrush Cross Grange. So Heathcliff encourages Isabella's kind of infatuation towards him. Now Heathcliff wants to marry Isabella Linton. Catherine had already married Edgar Linton. Now Heathcliff wants to marry Isabella Linton. Now Catherine, her mental and emotional as well as physical health was deteriorating, so she was sick. She locks herself without consuming any food or water. Now Heathcliff encourages to mortgage the estate because Edgar was, by the time Edgar was a booze and he used to engage in gambling. So Heathcliff want to mortgage the estate, and Heathcliff elopes with Isabella. So, but relationship between Heathcliff, two things Heathcliff had done. First one, Heathcliff encouraged Hindley to mortgage the estate. Second one, Heathcliff elopes with Isabella, but their relationship was not a smooth one. And when they had a son, Heathcliff returned. Heathcliff returned. Now, Heathcliff visits dying Catherine, and you can see classical dialogues of Heathcliff and Catherine, emotional exchanges of Heathcliff and Catherine there. Now, Heathcliff says that I cannot take revenge on you because you are me, he says. He considered Catherine Enshaw or Kathleen Linden now as a part of his own existence. So he says that now Heathcliff visits dying Catherine, and she gives birth to Cathy and dies. Now Heathcliff was upset because Heathcliff was passionately in love with Catherine. Now what happened to Isabella? All these emotional things made Isabella upset, and Isabella went to south and she gave birth to a son. Right. Now, second generation of Linton is there. That means Heathcliff and Isabella's son was also named as Linton. Now, what happened then? Now, second generation, you can see Catherine Enshaw and Hindley Catherine Enshaw and Edgar Linton's daughter is there, Cathy. Then Heathcliff's and Isabella's son is there, Linton. So these second generation. Then Hindley and Francis' son Hareton is also there. So by that time, what happened was that Hindley dies due to excessive consumption. Now, 12 years even after Isabella's death, we can see Linton was bring back to his uncle Edgar at Thrushcross Grange. Now, but lives with Heathcliff. Now, Cathy and Linton develops a relationship. Now, Heathcliff want to marry Linton, his son. He want to make a marriage proposal with his son Linton as well as Cathy, that is Catherine and Edgar's daughter Cathy. Heathcliff want to marry Cathy and Linton, Junior Linton, right? Why? Because so that he can become the owner of both Wuthering Heights as well as Thrushcross Grange. That was his scheme. After Edgar's death, the couple moves in with Heathcliff. Now Heathcliff has a claim over when Cathy married Linton, his son. Heathcliff claimed Thrushcross Grange also, along with Wuthering Heights of the Enshaws. Now what happened was that by the time he was his mental health was deteriorating because Catherine has already died, right? He couldn't cope up with the death. Emotional trauma happened with the death of Catherine Earnshaw. So he even digs up Catherine's grave and he wants to get possessed. So he says, he even asks Catherine's ghost to haunt him. He says that murderer. So murder used to haunt the murderer. So if that is the case, if I have killed you, then haunt me. Something like that he says. So Catherine, before her death, had said that I am Heathcliff, which is the most classic line in this text. So that was their relationship. Now Heathcliff even digs his beloved, so that is Catherine's grave, and he wants to get possessed by the ghost of Catherine. So by the time we have seen that Linton and Cathy dies, Linton and Cathy got married, where Linton dies due to poor health and Cathy remains at Wuthering Heights. Now Nellie concludes the tale that what happened towards the end. Towards the end, Heathcliff Cathy develops a kind of relationship with uneducated, illiterate Hareton. It was actually a revenge of Heathcliff to keep Hareton uneducated, right? So, and slavish, right? So Heathcliff was initially against the marriage of Cathy and Hareton, but after all this revenge, Heathcliff declined physically, and he dies at the old room. That is, he dies at the room of Catherine. Now, Cathy tries to educate Hareton, and they plan to move and married to Rushbro's Grange, where they were accompanied by Nellie. And Wuthering Heights was at the care of Joseph, was taken care by Joseph. And you can also see Lockwood was tired of this moors and he went away from there. Now Heathcliff also dies. He was now he we have already said that his health was declined and he dies at the old room of Catherine. It's always also it's said that locals used to see the ghost of Catherine at the Wuthering Heights. So these are all about Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, which is actually a nice reading experience once you go through the text. Before that, make sure that you have gone through the family tree presented in the novel towards the initial pages of the text. So hope Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights are clear for you. Thanks for listening. Thank you.